Genesis chapter 3 marks a pivotal moment in human history. It's a story of choices, consequences, and the enduring love of God. This chapter recounts the events known as the fall of humanity, where Adam and Eve, the first humans, disobeyed God's command. Their disobedience brought sin and death into the world, fracturing the perfect relationship they had with their Creator. Yet even in the midst of their failure, God offered a glimmer of hope, a promise of redemption that would echo through generations. It's important to remember that the story of the fall is not just an ancient tale. It speaks to the core of the human experience. We all face temptations, make choices that have consequences, and experience the weight of our failings. But like Adam and Eve, we also have access to God's grace and the promise of a restored relationship with Him. The story of the fall is a reminder of our vulnerability to temptation and the far-reaching effects of sin. It's also a story of hope, pointing us towards God's plan for our redemption. By exploring this pivotal chapter, we gain a deeper understanding of our own humanity and the unwavering love of the God who created us. The serpent, described in the Bible as crafty and cunning, approached Eve in the Garden of Eden. God had given Adam and Eve one simple command, not to eat the fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. The serpent, however, saw an opportunity to deceive. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree in the garden?" he asked Eve, subtly twisting God's words. Eve, drawn into the conversation, corrected the serpent, stating that they were free to eat from any tree except one. The serpent then uttered the lie that would change everything. "You will not certainly die," he hissed. "For God knows that when you eat from it, your eyes will be opened and you will be like God, knowing good and evil." The serpent's words were laced with temptation. He appealed to Eve's desire for knowledge and her longing to be like God. By questioning God's words and offering a distorted view of the truth, the serpent planted seeds of doubt in Eve's heart. He presented disobedience as a pathway to enlightenment, a way to become more than what they were created to be. This encounter serves as a stark reminder of the tactics the enemy uses to lead us astray. He often disguises his lies as truth, appealing to our desires and insecurities. Like Eve, we must be vigilant, holding fast to God's word and recognizing the deceptive nature of temptation. Eve, enticed by the serpent's words and the fruit's appeal, took a bite and gave some to Adam, who also ate. Immediately their eyes were opened, but not in the way they had imagined. Instead of gaining divine knowledge, they felt shame and fear. They realized their nakedness and quickly made coverings for themselves from fig leaves. When God came walking in the garden, they hid in fear. God, aware of their disobedience, questioned them. Adam blamed Eve, and Eve blamed the serpent. Their attempts to shift blame revealed the depth of their transgression. They had chosen to disobey God, and their sin had fractured their relationship with Him and with each other. The consequences of their sin were immediate and devastating. They experienced guilt, shame, and the pain of separation from God. The harmony of the garden was shattered. The ground was cursed, making their work laborious. Pain entered childbirth and death. The ultimate consequence of sin cast its shadow over all creation. This account highlights the destructive nature of sin. It separates us from God, creates distance in our relationships, and brings pain and suffering into the world. The once perfect paradise was lost, a poignant reminder of the high cost of disobedience. Even in the midst of judgment, God's heart was filled with love and compassion. He cursed the serpent, promising that he would crawl on his belly and that there would be enmity between his offspring and the offspring of Eve. This promise, often referred to as the proto-evangelium or first gospel, hinted at a future deliverer, one who would come from the line of Eve to crush the serpent's head. This promise offered a glimmer of hope in the face of despair, a beacon of light in the darkness of their sin. God's act of providing clothing for Adam and Eve from animal skins further illustrated His grace and mercy. He didn't abandon them in their sin, but instead He covered their shame and provided for their needs. The promise of redemption reminds us that even in our darkest moments, God's love for us never fails. He has a plan to restore what was broken and to bring healing to the wounds of sin. This promise, spoken in the garden, would find its fulfillment in Jesus Christ, who would come to conquer sin and death, offering salvation to all who believe.